We start here this hour. The ANC is gearing up for some heated debate at its National Policy Conference, but its staffers are hot under the collar over unpaid salaries. They plan to picket the conference. Our reporter Pule Letshwiti-Jones is watching this and joins us now. Good morning, Pule. It seems ANC workers are quite disappointed at the manner in which Pule Mabe opted to respond on the party's inability to pay their salaries. Talk to us about this.
Definitely, they were bruised by some of those comments made by the national spokesperson of the ANC, who said that the organization is not a cash in transit and, solemnly relies on donations. And, there's been quite a lot of concern around that. And hence why we are seeing the end result of what has stemmed here being a picket just outside the venue where the ANC Policy Conference will be expected to convene. Quite still the same issues that they're raising, the issues of Provident Fund being in the arrears, the issue of some salaries not being paid while others have been paid. So those inconsistency patterns there are at the center of what has been resulted to rather this picket here taking place this morning. But I'm joined by the Nahawu Secretary General as well to give us more clarity around this issue. Professor Peta, thank you very much for speaking to us on eNCA this morning. Perhaps let's start about some of the issues you've raised. Have you tabled some solutions that will look to actually resolving this problem here?
We have been in discussion with Paul Mashatile, the Treasurer General, who is currently an acting Secretary General, to a point that we have taken each other to court with an ANC for non-payment of salaries since last year. And they've made a commitment that moving forward they will be paying. And the truth of the matter, they have not paid. They only paid workers because we have raised the matter closer to the policy conference only for June. They have not been paid for July. We have submitted our demands also to the SARS Commissioner. He's aware of our demands. We have also been meeting the management of UNISA. They know what the proposals that we are making in terms of dealing with impasse. So we have done everything we could do in our power. The bodies on this in their court now.
Some have said that, the movement is running a bloated organization and therefore is failing to implement more modern mechanical strategies to speak to some of these issues. Is this something you agree with?
Remember, this is a 104-year organization. It has been here for a long time before even we were born. So as an employer, they should not budget on the basis of donor funding. They must budget on the basis of what they have, which then must inform the number of employees that they need. So the less said about what the spokesperson of the ANC said, the better for us. But what really is important is to meet the delegation of the ANC to get into the details of the discussion to find solution. Otherwise, that solution will continue to be picketing up until the end of the conference, but also will consider other avenues available to our disposal.
Well, let's now speak policy. What are some of the things you're expecting to hear from the conference, speaking to the issues of health in this country as well? Are you expecting to hear advanced, ways as to how some of these issues can be addressed, issues of health, issues of education as well in the country, which are still a problem as well as we've come out of a deadly pandemic, COVID-19?
The overarching expectation from us is being consistent of the ANC to the program that they're driving, which is the National Democratic Revolution, which places at the helm of the work of the ANC the biasness to the working class, which is a primary motive force. And we want to see ANC putting such policies, particularly the microeconomic policy, which must favor the poor and the working class as opposed to favoring the big business, people who are already rich. It must also take into account that it's a governing party, and therefore it must pay particular attention to the improvement of the social condition of its society.
Just on that aspect of improvement, how do you think that these policies should speak to improving the work and professionalism of civil servants as well, and even in this public sector?
Of course, the improvement of public service as a system and the public servant as people who are at the point of service requires not only the ANC, it requires the entire society. We have to have a dialogue publicly in South Africa about what kind of public service we want, and on the basis of that, then we'll be able to identify the kind of capacity and the orientation of public servants we want. So we are more open on that, we are more free, and then we are going to be participating here because leaders of NEA are part of the integral part of COSATU delegation, but in their own right as members of the ANC, they are here. So we will raise that issue. We are not running away from that issue. It's a necessary discussion to pursue.
It is a very important, discussion to pursue, particularly looking at how the economy is struggling, how there's, unemployment rate keeps increasing as well. Do you think, having adopted some of these policies from NASREC, do you think there has been improvement? Do you think some of these policies have been implemented, or do you think we're just stagnant? We're not moving forward as a nation?
Certainly we're stagnant, precisely because the secondary motive force of this revolution is at the helm of the ANC. So the drastic change that must happen requires a class struggle. We must overthrow the secondary motive force and place the primary motive force. In this case, we need to see the working class leadership at the helm and the center of the leadership of the ANC to be consistent with the policies of the ANC for a smooth implementation of those policies that are progressive, that would have been taken by conferences of the ANC.
Yeah. Many don't want this just to be a discussion. They want these policies to be practical and speak to the plight of the people and their challenges as well. How do you think the organization can advance these policies going forward, and this not just being paperwork and discussions?
Certainly, as you know, currently the ANC talks about the renewal. In our view, it doesn't need a renewal. It requires a restoration of its ideological discipline, as that has been forming ANC since 1912, and the moral high ground of leadership at the helm of the ANC. And that's why we think that the ANC will change. Currently, we are not going to change because of the ideological outlook of the leadership of the ANC that is preoccupied by enriching themselves through corruption and other forms that are counter-revolutionary.
And you speak about, preoccupied about, enriching themselves. What also would say coupled with factions as well. I don't know if you've heard about this, but I spoke to Josh Bashamba, the Integrity Commission chairperson, earlier on, confirming that the president has appeared before the Integrity Commission on Tuesday and met with the elders. They're yet again to meet again. Do you think this is the right step in the right direction when speaking to accountability? Because many saying step aside is also one thing that will be discussed today.
I don't think that the Integrity Committee will help the nation. It's just a structure within the ANC. It might be of value in the ANC. Remember, we're talking about the president of the nation, a president who's leading government. So we do think that the security agencies must do their work as part of complementing the internal process of the ANC. But our hope really should be placed on the security agencies that if person would have acted contrary to the policies or to the law, must face the music and also deal with the consequences of his actions. That's what we need. If the president is clean, it's well and good. If he's not clean, then he must be subjected like any ordinary member of society.
In essence, you say he must face accountability?
Certainly, leadership goes with accountability and responsibility. So he's not immune. He's like any other leader would have been. Like ourselves, we're accountable and must take responsibility to our constituencies that have elected us.
Thank you very much for joining me in this discussion. That's the General Secretary of NAHAU. Perhaps maybe if you can allow me to move, I wanted to get some bit of reaction from COSATU as well, from Soli Mapaile, newly elected Secretary General of the movement. I had of course spoken to him earlier to say if he would give us comments regarding the latest where we're being told that the president has appeared before the Integrity Commission. But what we also understand is that, while these workers are still disgruntled and happy, they're calling for a much more, practical solution, speaking to perhaps maybe trimming staff members for them to be paid the outstanding Provident Fund fundo. So those are some of the solutions as well that have been tabled, and we're hoping that we can try and see if we can speak to it and see if we can also speak to Mr. Mapaile to get comments regarding this matter. I just try to call him from the crowd, and I see he's looked at me. Perhaps he will be coming to speak to us this morning. Just maybe if you can just give me a second. Sorry for those shaky visuals, but I'll try to see if I can speak to him as well.
They are meeting here. There are billions of rands inside here.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Two powerful people inside
Good.
here.
Can we just speak to you, perhaps just regarding a few things.
The reason we are here is because of this worker. It's the main showstopper of this.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, all right. So I guess we'll be speaking to Mr. Mabaile just after this session that's been held here and this, address by SACP COSATU in Nahawu to some of the disgruntled ANC workers.
But I suppose it's quite significant, Pule, that the SACP is there alongside those workers, even as an alliance partner, to say for them, their mandate or their greatest alliance will always be with the downtrodden or the workers. It is a significant moment.
Definitely, it is a significant moment, also just a few weeks after that SACP Congress conference that actually convened, and you would have heard some of the remarks that are being made by Solima Paile saying it's high time that the ANC looks into the interests of the people and ensures that it does not become a declining organization, and speaks to some of the issues that are affecting the party, which of course includes corruption, and some of which Nahawu had mentioned earlier, saying are challenges of self-enrichment. And when he addressed here this morning, he did say that the alliance, of course, now being SACP and COSATU, apart from the ANC, was in solidarity with the workers, and there would be next to them, marching forward, ensuring that they can resolve this issue of salary payments, which they've dubbed as really unacceptable, and that the movement should actually get its house in order and resolve some of these problems that are at the center of challenging its integrity as well. I mean, you look at just before the local government elections, the ANC's Treasurer General, Pule Letshwiti-Jones, did commit himself to saying this issue would be resolved within the next 6 months from then. This was also reiterated during the ANC's January 8 conference as well. But you fast forward a few months later, it's still a problem that continuously persists within the organization and is challenging them. I mean, they are in about 98 million rand of provident fund areas. So it does show you that they are really struggling with their finances, despite the ANC spokesperson, Pule Mabe, saying that's not the case. And some are saying that, presidential gala dinners cannot speak to the solution. It's just a temporary plan, but workers are affected, and the economy isn't performing very well. Some of the sectors are not performing very well, and therefore this is something the ANC really needs to address with urgency, and not just being lip service and discussions that do not speak to practical solutions of improving this problem.
I think a bit later on, Pule, when we do reconnect later, perhaps we can find out what some of the solutions or suggestions that have been put forward by the workers themselves, because in such instances one would think they've become very resourceful.